The piercing shriek wasn't from me, despite being in the throes of labor. It was my mother-in-law, bursting into the delivery room, screaming that the baby I was birthing belonged to her daughter, and in that horrifying moment my world shattered. She lunged, trying to snatch my newborn son right off my chest, while my husband just stood there, utterly frozen. The nurse immediately pulled her away, but the damage was already done. My baby wasn't moving. Just moments before, that day was supposed to be the happiest of my life. After 36 grueling hours of labor, I was finally about to meet my baby boy. The contractions were coming hard and fast, my epidural was wearing off, and exhaustion had claimed every inch of me. But I was ready. One more big push, Evelyn. Dr. Winters encouraged, her voice a lifeline. We can see his head. You're doing great. My husband, Marcus, squeezed my hand. You've got this, Savi, he whispered, his face pale but his eyes bright with pure excitement. I closed my eyes, gathered what little strength I had left, and pushed with everything I had. The pain was explosive, radiating from my core throughout my entire body, but through it all, I could feel my son entering the world. A strangled, animal-like sound escaped my throat as I bore down. Then, just as I felt the burning sensation of his tiny shoulders passing through, the delivery room door burst open with a bang that made everyone jump. Where is he? Where is he? The shriek was unmistakable. Judith, my mother-in-law. Through my haze of pain and exertion, I saw her storm into the room, her face contorted with pure rage, her designer handbag swinging wildly from her arm. Behind her, a nurse desperately tried to intercept her. Ma'am, you can't be in here. But Judith was unstoppable. She'd always been a force of nature, wealthy, entitled, and used to getting her way, but I had never seen her like this. Her normally perfectly coiffed silver hair was disheveled, her expensive makeup smeared with tears. That's my daughter's baby, she screamed, pointing at me. You stole him from her. The room fell silent, an eerie, unnatural quiet broken only by the steady beep of the fetal monitor. Even the doctor paused, her hand still positioned to receive my child. Mom, what are you talking about? Marcus finally spoke, his voice laced with confusion. Mom, you need to leave right now. But Judith wasn't listening. Her eyes were wild, fixed on the space between my legs where our baby was still emerging. Lisa told me everything, she spat, referring to Marcus's ex-girlfriend from 5 years ago. She told me how you trapped my son, how you got pregnant when he was still in love with her. Dr. Winters found her voice. Security to delivery room 4, she said calmly into the intercom. Then her gaze snapping back to me. Evelyn, I need you to keep pushing. Your baby needs to come out now. I tried to focus to block out the chaos, but Judith was advancing toward the foot of the bed. Marcus, stop her. I pleaded, but when I looked at my husband, he was frozen in place, his face a mask of shock and indecision. That's when I felt it. The final release as my son finally entered the world completely. There was no cry, just a sudden terrible silence. Dr. Winters quickly clamped and cut the cord. Nurse, take the baby, she instructed, her voice tight with urgency. But before the nurse could move, Judith lunged forward. That's Lisa's baby, she shrieked, reaching for my newborn son. She told me everything. You used my son's frozen sperm. Sperm he stored for Lisa before they broke up. Her hands, with their perfectly manicured red nails, grabbed at my baby boy, who was still slick with birth fluids and blood. Her ring scratched his delicate skin as she tried to pull him from the doctor's hands. Security! Dr. Winters called again, more urgently this time. The nurse on my right moved with surprising speed for someone her age. She wedged herself between Judith and the doctor, physically blocking my mother-in-law from reaching my child. Ma'am, you need to step back now, the nurse said, her voice firm as steel. But the damage was done. In the struggle, my baby, my beautiful, perfect baby boy, had slipped from the doctor's hands. I saw him fall, seemingly in slow motion, onto the padded delivery table. A terrible silence fell over the room. My son wasn't crying. He wasn't moving. The baby's not breathing, Dr. Winters said, her voice suddenly clinical and detached. She pressed the emergency button on the wall. Code blue in delivery room 4. I need a neonatal team stat. As medical staff rushed in, pushing Judith aside, my husband finally moved, but not to me. Not to our son. Instead, he grabbed his mother by the shoulders. "Mom, what the hell are you talking about?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "Lisa? What does this have to do with Lisa?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Our son wasn't breathing, and Marcus was asking about his ex-girlfriend. The world started spinning. Black spots appeared in my vision. The last thing I saw before I passed out was my tiny motionless son being whisked away by a team of doctors while my husband stood with his arms around his sobbing mother. When I woke up, I was in a recovery room. The fluorescent lights were too bright, making my pounding headache worse. For a moment I couldn't remember where I was or why I was there. Then it all came flooding back. My baby. I tried to sit up, ignoring the sharp pain that tore through my lower body. A nurse gently pushed me back down. "Mrs. Chun, you need to stay still," she said softly. "You've lost a lot of blood." "My baby," I croaked, my throat raw from screaming during labor. "Where's my son? Is he okay?" The nurse hesitated for a moment too long. "He's alive," she finally said, "but I should let the doctor explain his condition." Relief washed over me, followed immediately by a fresh wave of primal fear. What had Judith done to my child? I must have drifted off again because when I opened my eyes, Marcus was sitting beside my bed. His eyes were bloodshot, his clothes rumpled. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in a matter of hours. "Evie," he whispered, taking my hand. His palm was clammy. "You're awake." I pulled my hand away. "Where's our son? What happened? Is he okay?" Marcus's face crumpled. "He's stable. They have him on a ventilator." He paused, his voice breaking. "When he fell, there was some brain swelling. They're doing everything they can." The room seemed to tilt. "When he fell? You mean when your mother tried to kidnap him and the doctor dropped him?" Marcus winced. "It was an accident, Evie. Mom didn't mean." "Don't you dare defend her," I hissed, rage giving me a strength I didn't know I had. "Where is she? Did they arrest her?" Marcus looked down at his hands. "She's at home. She's not well. She had a psychotic break." She truly believed. I don't care what she believed. I struggled to sit up again, ignoring the pain. "She tried to take our son, and you just stood there." Tears filled Marcus's eyes. "I know. I'm so sorry. I was in shock." "Get out," I said, my voice trembling with fury. "Get out of my room right now. Evie, please. Get out," I screamed, not caring who heard. "And tell them I want to see my son. Now." After Marcus left, I lay back on the pillows, my mind racing. What had Judith meant about Lisa and frozen sperm? Marcus and I had struggled with infertility for years before I finally got pregnant naturally. We'd never used any fertility treatments. No, it wasn't possible. Marcus wouldn't have lied about something so fundamental. But Judith's words kept echoing in my head. "You used my son's frozen sperm. Sperm he stored for Lisa before they broke up." How would Judith even know about frozen sperm unless it was true? It took all my powers of persuasion, but 3 hours later, a nurse helped me into a wheelchair and took me to the NICU. Behind the glass, in a tangle of tubes and wires, lay my tiny son. His perfect little chest rose and fell mechanically with a ventilator. A bandage covered part of his head where they placed a shunt to relieve the pressure on his brain. Marcus was sitting beside the incubator, his head in his hands. He looked up when I entered, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. "Evie," he began, but I cut him off with a raised hand. The NICU nurse helped me sanitize my hands and guided me to a chair on the opposite side of the incubator from Marcus. "You can touch him," she said gently. "Just be careful of the tubes." With trembling fingers, I reached through the small opening in the incubator and stroked my son's impossibly soft cheek. His skin was warm. Thank God he was warm, and I could see his tiny chest rising and falling with each mechanical breath. "His name is Ethan," I said. "Ethan James Chun." Not a single family name from Marcus's side. No legacy for Judith to claim. By the way, if you're still with me and gripped by this unbelievable story, make sure to hit that subscribe button. More incredible and raw personal narratives are coming. Exhaustion finally overcame me, and the nurse insisted I return to my room. I was still reeling from Judith's accusations, a venomous seed planted deep in my mind. So I did something I'd never done before. I called my father. We hadn't spoken in years, not since he'd made it clear he disapproved of my marriage to Marcus. Dad had always thought Marcus was too weak, too controlled by his overbearing mother, Evelyn. His voice was wary but alert despite the late hour. "Daddy," I said and burst into tears. To his credit, my father didn't say, "I told you so." Instead, he listened as I poured out the whole horrible story. The traumatic birth, Judith's accusations, Marcus's strange reaction, and Ethan's precarious condition. "I'll be there in the morning," he finally said, his voice firm. "And I'm bringing Simone with me." Simone was his lawyer wife, a shark in the courtroom from what I'd heard. After hanging up, I lay back on the bed, physically and emotionally drained. Sleep wouldn't come though. My mind kept replaying Judith's wild accusations and Marcus's evasive behavior. The hospital room felt sterile and cold, the beeping of monitors a constant reminder of where I was and what had happened. I'd always imagined this day so differently. Marcus and I gazing adoringly at our newborn, taking those first precious pictures, calling friends and family to share our joy. Instead, I was alone, my son fighting for his life and my husband, the man I trusted with everything. The man who had held my hand through 3 years of negative pregnancy tests, who had wiped away my tears after each failed attempt. Had it all been a lie? Had he been thinking of Lisa the whole time? I remembered how he proposed to me on a sailboat in the bay, the Golden Gate Bridge silhouetted against the sunset. He'd seemed so certain, so in love. "You're the one, Evie," he'd said. "You're my future." When had that changed? Or had it ever been true? This gnawing doubt wouldn't let me rest. I needed answers. I picked up my phone and searched for Lisa Chan San Francisco, knowing that she'd kept Marcus's last name for professional reasons even after their breakup. The results showed a LinkedIn profile for a Dr. Elisa Chun, PhD, developmental psychologist. I clicked on it and my blood ran cold. Her profile picture showed a smiling Asian woman with perfect skin and glossy black hair. Her latest job update was from 6 months ago. Returned to San Francisco after 5 years in London. Excited to start my new position at UCSF Medical Center. Lisa had been in London for the past 5 years. And now she was back right when I was due to give birth. I kept scrolling through the search results and found a recent article in a medical journal. Groundbreaking research on genetic memory in infants by Dr. Lisa Chan. The accompanying photo showed Lisa in a lab coat, standing next to none other than Marcus's mother, Judith Chun, identified as the head of the Chun Family Foundation, which had apparently funded the research. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. This couldn't be a coincidence. Judith had maintained a relationship with Marcus's ex all these years, and now, right when I was having Marcus's baby, they were working together. A soft knock at the door interrupted my spiraling thoughts. A nurse poked her head in. "Mrs. Chun, your husband asked me to let you know he's going home to shower and change. He'll be back in a few hours." I nodded numbly. "Thank you." After she left, I made a decision. I needed to find out the truth and I needed to do it now while Marcus was gone. Getting dressed was an ordeal that left me sweating and panting, but I managed it. I waited until the nurses were busy with another patient before making my way slowly down the hall toward the elevator. Outside, I hailed a rideshare and gave the driver an address I knew by heart. The Chun family estate in Pacific Heights. The Chun mansion was lit up like a cruise ship when I arrived. Despite the late hour, I paid the driver and walked unsteadily up the long driveway, each step sending waves of pain through my postpartum body. By the time I reached the massive front door, I was dizzy and nauseous, but the rage burning inside me kept me going. I rang the doorbell, hearing its melodious chime echo through the house. After a moment, the door swung open to reveal Wei, the Chun family's longtime housekeeper. Her eyes widened in shock. "Mrs. Evelyn, what are you doing here? You should be in hospital." "Where are they?" I asked, pushing past her into the marble foyer. "Where's Judith?" Wei wrung her hands nervously. "Mrs. Chun is in her study with Mr. Marcus and Dr. Lisa. But Mrs. Evelyn, you not look well." I didn't wait to hear the rest. I headed for Judith's study, a room I'd always hated with its intimidating antique furniture, and walls lined with photographs of Chun family achievements. Not a single one featuring me despite 7 years of marriage. The door was ajar, and I could hear voices inside. I pushed it open without knocking. 3 heads turned toward me in perfect synchronization. Judith in her leather executive chair, Marcus perched anxiously on an ottoman, and a woman I recognized from the LinkedIn photo sitting primly on the edge of the sofa. Lisa Chun in the flesh. Evelyn. Marcus jumped to his feet. What are you doing here? You should be in the hospital. So should you, I replied coldly. With your son. Remember him? The baby fighting for his life because of your mother. Judith's face hardened. You have some nerve coming here after what you've done. I laughed bitterly. What I've done? You nearly killed my child today, and you're accusing me. My child, Lisa said softly, speaking for the first time. Biologically, at least. The room went silent. I stared at her, then at Marcus, waiting for a denial that didn't come. What is she talking about? I asked, though I was starting to piece it together. Marcus stepped toward me, hands outstretched. Evie, I can explain. It's not what you think. Then what is it? Because it looks like you've been lying to me for our entire marriage. Marcus glanced nervously at his mother, who gave him a curt nod. You know we had trouble conceiving, he began haltingly. The doctor said my sperm count was too low. Yes, I remember, I said. We tried for 3 years. What you don't know is that I had the same problem with Lisa years ago. We wanted to have children, so I froze some healthy sperm samples before my count dropped too low. I felt like I'd been slapped. And you never thought to mention this to me during our fertility treatments? Marcus had the grace to look ashamed. I didn't think it mattered. Those samples were meant for Lisa and me. When we broke up, I just forgot about them. Liar, Lisa interjected, her voice surprisingly gentle. You didn't forget, Marcus. You told me you were going to destroy them. That's what we agreed. I looked back and forth between them, my head spinning. So, the samples still exist, but what does that have to do with Ethan? I got pregnant naturally. We weren't even doing treatments anymore. A heavy silence filled the room. Judith was the one who finally broke it. The night of your anniversary dinner last year, she said coldly. The one I hosted here. You had too much to drink and went to lie down. Do you remember? I nodded slowly. I'd had a terrible headache and had gone to rest in one of the guest rooms. When I woke up, I'd felt strange, a bit disoriented, but I'd blamed it on the champagne. What did you do to me? I whispered, horror dawning. Nothing that wasn't justified, Judith snapped. Lisa had just returned from London. She and Marcus reconnected. They realized they still had feelings for each other. I looked at Marcus, who couldn't meet my eyes. Is that true? We met for lunch, he admitted, just to catch up. But Evie, nothing happened. Don't lie to her now, Marcus, Lisa interrupted. Not after everything. She turned to me. We did more than have lunch. We slept together once. And then Marcus told me he couldn't leave you. The room was spinning. I grabbed the doorframe for support. So what? You decided to use his frozen sperm to get pregnant with his baby as revenge. Lisa shook her head. No, I never wanted children. That was always Marcus's dream, not mine. That's why we broke up in the first place. Then what? It was my idea, Judith said, lifting her chin defiantly. Lisa came to me, told me about their affair. I could see how unhappy Marcus was with you. Always has been. You trapped him, made him choose between his family and you. That's not true, I said, but my voice sounded weak, even to my own ears. When I found out the frozen samples still existed, I saw an opportunity, Judith continued. If you were pregnant, Marcus would stay with you out of duty. But the child would be Lisa's biologically. A true Chun with our superior genes. I felt sick. You're saying you somehow used Lisa's eggs and Marcus's frozen sperm to get me pregnant? That's not even scientifically possible without IVF. Not quite, Lisa said. She at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. They used Marcus's sperm, but the egg was yours. Dr. Reynolds performed the procedure while you were sedated. Dr. Reynolds, my gynecologist, the one Judith had recommended years ago. You're telling me my doctor performed artificial insemination on me without my consent? The room was definitely spinning now. That's assault. That's a crime. It was for the good of the family, Judith said dismissively. The Chun bloodline must continue. You were failing at the one thing you were supposed to do as Marcus's wife. And you were all in on this? I looked at Marcus, who seemed to be shrinking before my eyes. You knew they violated me like this? Not until after, he whispered. Mom told me a month later when you announced you were pregnant. I was so happy, Vi. I thought it was a miracle. It was a crime, I repeated. All of you were part of a conspiracy to assault me. No one will believe you, Judith said coldly. Dr. Reynolds has already altered your medical records. As far as anyone knows, you underwent fertility treatments with full consent. You even signed the forms. I remembered now. There had been so many forms over the years. I trusted Marcus to read them to tell me what I was signing. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, my voice sounding far away to my own ears. Why did you come to the hospital today and make that scene? Lisa stood up, straightening her immaculate blouse. Because I changed my mind. Seeing Marcus again reminded me of what we had, what we could have again. She crossed the room and placed her hand possessively on Marcus's arm. He didn't pull away. The baby was supposed to be ours. We were going to raise him together. While I did what? Just disappeared. Marcus was going to ask for a divorce, Judith said matter-of-factly. After a suitable period of grief. The implication hit me like a physical blow. You were planning to kill me. Of course not. Marcus said quickly. Nobody was going to hurt you, Vi. That was never the plan. Then what was the plan? No one answered. The silence told me everything I needed to know. You're all insane, I said, backing toward the door. My father and his wife will be here in the morning. She's a lawyer. When I tell them what you've done, you won't tell anyone, Judith said with chilling certainty. Not if you want to keep your son. I froze. What do you mean? Ethan's birth certificate hasn't been filed yet, she continued. One call from me, and Marcus's name will never appear on it. You'll be a single mother with no claim to Chan family support. And with his medical issues, that little boy is going to need the best care money can buy. You can't do that, I whispered. Marcus is his father. Prove it, Judith challenged. Request a paternity test, and the truth about how you got pregnant will come out. Your medical records show you consented to everything. It will be your word against ours. Against a respected doctor, a renowned psychologist, and one of the wealthiest families in San Francisco, Lisa added softly. Who do you think people will believe? I looked at Marcus silently, begging him to defend me, to stand up to his mother and his ex-girlfriend. But he just stood there looking trapped and miserable. In that moment I knew I'd lost. If I fought them I might lose Ethan, and he was all that mattered now. What do you want from me? I asked dully. Judith smiled, the triumph in her eyes chilling. Simple. You'll recover from the birth, care for the baby until he's strong enough to leave the hospital, and then you'll go away. Marcus will file for divorce on grounds of abandonment. You'll receive a generous settlement on the condition that you relinquish all parental rights. And Ethan? What happens to him? Marcus and I will raise him, Lisa said. As we should have from the beginning. No, the word came from Marcus, surprising us all. No, that's not right. Vi is Ethan's mother. She carried him. She gave birth to him. We can't just take him away from her. Judith turned on her son furiously. Don't be weak now, Marcus. This was the plan all along. Your plan, mother, not mine. Marcus crossed the room to stand beside me. I'm sorry. I should have told you the truth from the beginning. I was a coward. Yes, you were. I agreed, too exhausted to filter my words. You still are. He flinched but didn't argue. You're right. But I want to make it right now. Ethan is our son, yours and mine. We'll raise him together if you can ever forgive me. Lisa stepped forward, her composure finally cracking. Marcus, you can't be serious. After everything we've done to be together? We were never going to be together, Lisa, Marcus said sadly. That was just another one of my mother's manipulations. I'm sorry if she made you believe otherwise. Judith was on her feet now, her face contorted with rage. You ungrateful boy. After everything I've done for you. Done for me or done to control me? Marcus shot back. You've gone too far this time, mother. You endangered my wife and my son today. If anything happens to Ethan because of what you did, I will never forgive you. I swayed on my feet, the room starting to dim around the edges. The adrenaline that had carried me this far was wearing off, leaving me lightheaded and weak. "Marcus," I whispered, reaching for him. "I need to get back to the hospital. I need to be with Ethan." He caught me as my knees buckled. The last thing I heard before everything went black was Marcus's voice, suddenly strong and commanding. "Call an ambulance now. And Mother, when this is over, you and I are done." 6 months later, I sat in Simone's sleek downtown office, bouncing Ethan on my knee. My beautiful boy was thriving, plum-cheeked, bright-eyed, and hitting all his developmental milestones ahead of schedule. The small scar on his scalp where they'd placed the shunt was barely visible now, hidden by his thick black hair. "Are you sure about this, Evelyn?" Simone asked, sliding a document across her desk. "Once we file, there's no going back." I looked down at the papers. A civil lawsuit naming Judith Chun, Lisa Chun, and Dr. Reynolds as defendants. The charges included assault, battery, medical malpractice, conspiracy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. "I'm sure," I said firmly. "They need to pay for what they did." Marcus, sitting beside me, reached over to touch my hand. "We're doing the right thing," he assured me. I still hadn't fully forgiven Marcus for his role in the conspiracy, but we'd reached an understanding. He was in intensive therapy, learning to break free from his mother's toxic influence. He'd moved us out of the house Judith had bought for us and into a modest apartment across the city. Most importantly, he'd cut all ties with his mother, refusing to take her calls or accept her money. "The criminal case is proceeding as well," Simone reminded us. "The DA believes there's enough evidence to charge all 3 of them." Marcus nodded grimly. "Good. They deserve whatever punishment they get." 1 year later, I stood in the back of a crowded courtroom watching as the judge delivered his verdict. In the matter of the state of California versus Judith Chun, Lisa Chun, and Dr. Philip Reynolds on the charges of conspiracy, assault, and medical battery, the court finds the defendants guilty on all counts. A murmur ran through the crowd. Judith, elegant even in defeat, showed no reaction. Lisa, sitting beside her, wiped away a tear. Dr. Reynolds, who had already pleaded guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence, stared straight ahead. For the charge of conspiracy, I sentence each defendant to 5 years in state prison. For the charges of assault and medical battery, I sentence each defendant to an additional 7 years, to be served consecutively. 12 years. 12 years for violating me, for endangering my son, for trying to steal my life. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. The case had become a media sensation, a perfect storm of wealth, privilege, medical ethics, and reproductive rights. Marcus fielded most of the questions, shielding me from the worst of the frenzy. "Mrs. Chun, how does it feel to know your mother-in-law will be in prison for the next decade?" one reporter shouted over the others. I stepped forward, surprising myself. "My name is Evelyn Taylor now," I corrected her gently. "And it feels like the beginning of healing." 5 years later, I sat on a bench at a playground, watching Ethan race around with other kindergartners. His dark hair gleamed in the sunlight, his laughter carrying across the park. Looking at him now, so vibrant, so full of life, it was hard to believe he was the same fragile infant who had fought for every breath in the NICU. The doctors had warned us about potential developmental delays, about the possibility of cerebral palsy or other complications from his traumatic birth. But Ethan had defied every dire prediction. He'd walked early, talked early, and now exhibited a fierce intelligence that sometimes took my breath away. His only lingering physical reminder was the small crescent-shaped scar on his scalp, usually hidden by his thick hair. The emotional scars were less visible, but still present. Ethan had nightmares sometimes, terrors that left him screaming and inconsolable. The therapist said it was possible his body remembered the trauma, even if his conscious mind didn't. I wondered sometimes if he sensed the tension that had eventually torn his family apart. Marcus and I had really tried to make it work. For 2 years after the trial, we'd gone to couples therapy, individual therapy, even a 2-week intensive retreat designed to help couples heal from trauma. But some wounds were too deep. The trust that had been broken could never fully be repaired. It wasn't all Marcus's fault. I changed too. The soft, trusting woman who had married into the Chun family was gone. In her place was someone harder, more wary, fiercely protective of her independence. I didn't need Marcus or his family's money. The settlement from the civil suit had set Ethan and me up comfortably, and I'd gone back to work as a graphic designer, building a successful freelance business that allowed me to be home when Ethan needed me. The divorce had been as amicable as such things can be. We both recognized that while we loved our son, the trauma of his birth and the revelations that followed had irrevocably changed our relationship. We shared custody, with Ethan spending weekdays with me and weekends with Marcus. We were civil at handoffs, consulted each other on major decisions, and even occasionally had dinner together as a family for Ethan's sake. "Mind if I join you?" I looked up to see Marcus standing there, handsome as ever in his casual weekend clothes. The years had been kind to him, a few strands of silver in his dark hair, a few more lines around his eyes, but still the same Marcus who had once made my heart race. Sometimes when he smiled at Ethan in a certain way, I felt an echo of what we'd once had. "Of course," I said, scooting over to make room. "He's been asking when you'd get here." Marcus sat down, his eyes never leaving Ethan. "How's the new job?" I asked politely. After leaving the Chun family business, Marcus had started his own tech company, building it from the ground up without his family's connections or money. It had struggled at first but was now gaining traction. "It's good. Challenging but good." He hesitated. "I heard from my mother's lawyer yesterday." My stomach clenched. Judith had been released from prison 6 months ago after serving 5 years of her sentence. She'd been granted early parole for good behavior. What did she want? Marcus sighed. "The same thing she's wanted since she got out. A chance to see Ethan." "No," I said automatically. "Absolutely not." "I agree," Marcus assured me quickly. "I told her lawyer what we've always said, that Ethan isn't ready, and we doubt he ever will be." I relaxed slightly. This was one area where Marcus and I had always been in perfect alignment. Whatever our differences, protecting Ethan from Judith was our top priority. Before I could respond, Ethan spotted us and came running over, his face flushed with excitement. "Daddy, Mommy, did you see me?" I climbed all the way to the top by myself. Marcus scooped him up, swinging him around. "I saw, buddy, you were amazing." I watched them together, my heart full and aching at the same time. Despite everything, I couldn't regret the path that had brought Ethan into my life. He was worth every moment of pain, every nightmare, every tear. As I watched Ethan chattering excitedly to his father, I realized something important. The past would always be there, but it didn't have to dictate our future. We could choose to move forward, to heal, to find joy despite everything we'd endured. "Mommy, can we get ice cream?" Ethan asked, suddenly appearing in front of me. "Daddy says it's okay if you say it's okay." I smiled at his breathless enthusiasm. "Sure, sweetheart, but just one scoop. We're having dinner later." Marcus caught my eye over Ethan's head. "Actually, I was wondering if you'd like to join us for dinner. There's that new Italian place near my apartment. They have those stuffed mushrooms you like." I hesitated. This was new. We'd done family dinners before, but always at kid-friendly restaurants, always with Ethan as the clear focus. This sounded more like, well, like a date. "I don't know, Marcus. I have a project deadline on Monday." "Please, Mommy." Ethan tugged at my hand. "It'll be fun. Like when we went to Disney World. Our family vacation last year." A peace offering from Marcus after a tense disagreement about Ethan's schooling. To my surprise, it had been fun. The three of us had navigated the crowded park, eaten too much junk food, and laughed until our sides hurt on the roller coasters. For a few days we'd felt like a real family. "Okay," I found myself saying, "but I really can't stay late." Marcus's smile was warm and without pressure. "No problem. I'll make reservations for 6. As we walked toward the ice cream stand, hand in hand with Ethan between us, I thought about the long, strange journey that had brought us here. From the horror of that delivery room to the revelations at the Chan mansion, from the grim satisfaction of the courtroom to the quiet pain of signing divorce papers, every step had shaped us, molded us, tested us. I still didn't know if I could ever fully trust Marcus again. I didn't know if the fragile friendship we'd built since the divorce could ever evolve into something more. But I knew that Ethan deserved parents who could at least be civil, who could put his needs above their own pain. And maybe, just maybe, I deserved a chance at happiness too. Not the naive, uncomplicated happiness I'd once imagined, but something deeper and more hard-won. A happiness that acknowledged the scars but refused to be defined by them. Judith had tried to take everything from me, my son, my marriage, my dignity, even my life. In the end, she'd lost everything instead. Her reputation, her freedom, her son, her precious family legacy. The Chun name, once synonymous with power and prestige in San Francisco, was now associated with scandal and crime. The last I'd heard, Judith was living alone in a condo in Arizona, cut off from her former social circle, her health deteriorating. Lisa had moved to Boston after serving her reduced sentence, changing her name to avoid the notoriety. Dr. Reynolds had lost his medical license and served 3 years in prison before being released on parole. None of them had contacted me since the trial, though Judith still occasionally tried to reach Marcus. I watched as Marcus bought Ethan his ice cream cone, chocolate chip, his favorite, patiently wiping a drip from his chin before it could stain his shirt. He caught me watching and smiled. A simple, unguarded smile that reminded me of the man I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. The nightmare that began when Judith burst into the delivery room had shaped us, scarred us, nearly destroyed us. But it hadn't defined us. We had defined ourselves through our choices, our strength, and our unwavering love for the child who had almost been taken from us. That was the real victory. That was the ultimate revenge. As Ethan skipped ahead, Marcus fell in step beside me, close but not touching. "He's doing so well," he said softly. "The teacher says he's reading at a 3rd grade level." "I know. Sometimes I can't believe how lucky we are." "Not luck," Marcus said firmly. "You fought for him. From the very first moment you fought when I couldn't. I'll never forget that, Our eyes met for a long moment, and in that silent exchange was a history, both painful and profound. We had nearly lost everything. We had hurt each other deeply, but we had also created something beautiful together. Not just Ethan, but a new kind of relationship forged in the fire of adversity. Whether that relationship remained a friendship or someday became something more, I didn't know. But for now it was enough. Have you ever faced a betrayal so profound it changed who you are, but still found a way to move forward and build a new kind of happiness? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. I'd really love to hear them.